I never thought I'd admit this out loud, but the day my wife left me at the altar wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what I discovered in our bank account afterward, and how far she'd gone to cover her tracks.
Welcome to Reddit Toxic Family Telltales channel. New episode every day.
My boyfriend just won't stop giggling with my coworker, and it's driving me insane. See, Vera started working at my restaurant about 4 months ago. And right from day one, the second she laid eyes on my boyfriend Hato, it was like she decided he was hers. No hesitation. No shame. Just pure entitlement. The first time she saw us together was when he came in to have lunch with me. We were sitting there, enjoying our food, laughing, just a normal couple moment. Then I got up to use the bathroom. When I came back, she was in my chair. Not just sitting across from him like a normal person. No, she had literally slid herself right into my seat, pressed her hip against his, and was batting her eyelashes like some dollar store femme fatale. And then, with this smug little grin, she leans in and goes, "Konnichiwa." Now, I should explain, my boyfriend is half Japanese, and that's always been something special between us. We bond over it, we joke about it, we share food and little phrases. But Vera? Oh, she couldn't stand the fact that I had something with him that she didn't. So, when Hato politely smiled and replied, she jumped on it like it was her opening act. She snatched up a pair of chopsticks and started fumbling with them like it was her first time holding utensils. Then she launched into this whole tirade about whitewashed girls stealing from his culture, very obviously aiming that dagger straight at me. When I came back from the bathroom, she turned her head, looked me up and down, and with the fakest sweetness ever said, "Oh, you can grab another chair. You can join our conversation if you want." My blood was boiling, but I played it cool. I trusted Hato, and I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me rattled. But Vera wasn't just flirting. She was plotting. She started cornering him whenever she thought I wasn't watching, whispering corny, suggestive phrases in Japanese she'd clearly just typed into Google Translate. She'd squeeze past us in the narrow aisle, dragging her body slow, rubbing her backside against him, or, when she was feeling bold, pressing against him face to face with those ridiculous fiery eyes. The moment I almost lost it was when she actually asked him to come to her place after work to teach her Japanese. I swear, I almost confronted her right there in the middle of a packed dinner rush, but I bit my tongue and told myself I'd deal with it after service. Big mistake. Because that night, a group of high-profile Japanese businessmen came in. And guess whose section they landed in? Mine. At least, until Vera shoved me out of the way like I was a nobody. She marched up to the table with her fake confidence and chirped, "Don't worry. I speak Japanese. I understand everything." The men lit up, relieved to hear that, and started rattling off their orders with all these specific details about allergies and substitutions. And Vera? She just nodded over and over, bowing, going hi, while scribbling total nonsense onto her pad. 45 minutes later, the entire restaurant was in chaos. One businessman got the wrong appetizer. Another was served 2 sushi plates when he'd ordered chicken chow mein. And the third? He ended up having an actual allergic reaction to shellfish, something he had specifically said to exclude. And while Hato sprinted to grab the EpiPen, Vera pulled the stunt of the century. She pointed directly at me and told her cousin, the manager, that I had changed the order to sabotage her. And her cousin didn't even bother to fact-check. He just wrote me up in front of everyone, warning me that one more mistake and I was fired. I went home crushed. I cried my eyes out to Hato, wondering if quitting was my only option. That's when he looked at me with this little spark in his eye and said, "If she wants me to teach her Japanese, let's do exactly that." So we set a plan. At work, we pretended our relationship was rocky. Sure enough, Vera swooped right in to comfort him, draping her hand on his arm, sitting beside him every chance she got, leaning in way too close. Hato let her think she was winning him over. And then he offered to teach her Japanese. Not at her house. Not privately. Just right there at the restaurant. Vera jumped at it like SpongeBob hearing the Goofy Goober theme song. Before I knew it, they were huddled in the back, laughing, giggling, while she repeated every word he taught her in this fake cutesy anime girl voice. But here's the kicker. He wasn't teaching her polite phrases. Nope. Every single word out of her mouth was an insult. I'd be standing nearby, biting my tongue as she proudly told an elderly Japanese woman Kuso Baba, which means crappy old hag. Or the time she leaned down to a 7-year-old autistic girl and chirped Busu Shine, which translates to ugly witch, go die. And she did it all with the enthusiasm of a toddler showing off how fast she can eat a crayon. Every time she insulted a customer, she'd run back to Hato, glowing, to brag about it. And he'd just smile and tell her she was doing amazing. For weeks, this went on. Vera strutted around, showering customers with phrases like eat and die, screw your ancestors, and my personal favorite, or baka wakari, basically, I'm stupid but I think I'm smart. But then came the night of the owner's mother's 85th birthday. The entire family was there. The mom, fully Japanese, was visiting from overseas for the first time in years. It was supposed to be a beautiful, intimate celebration. And that's when Hato made his move. He told Vera she should take the order. In Japanese. So, with the swagger of a soldier marching into battle, Vera stepped up to the elderly woman and said, loudly, proudly, and with a dramatic little bow, "Hello, you dumb, worthless old witch. Kiss my behind." The restaurant went dead silent. The owner's face drained of color. His hands actually shook as he gripped the table. His mother sat frozen, staring at Vera like she'd just committed a crime. Every single person at the party turned to look at her, while Vera just stood there, smiling like she'd done something brilliant. The owner slowly rose to his feet. His voice came out quiet, almost whispering, but that made it scarier. "Could you please repeat what you just said to my mother?" And she did. Louder. With another bow. That's when his mother began speaking rapidly in Japanese, her voice trembling. And Vera's smile cracked. She realized something was very, very wrong. The owner's eyes narrowed. "Where did you learn those words?" And Vera, coward that she is, pointed straight at Hato, blurting out that he'd been teaching her for weeks, swearing he told her this was the perfect birthday greeting. The owner turned his gaze on Hato. Hato's face was stone. Not a single emotion showing. Before he could even open his mouth, I stepped forward. My heart was pounding, my voice shaking, but I forced the words out. "Sir, there's something you need to know. The whole story." He glanced at his mother, then back at us, and said in this icy calm voice, "All of you, my office. Now." We walked through the restaurant like it was a walk of shame, every set of eyes glued to us. My heart was hammering so hard it felt like everyone could hear it. The air in that narrow hallway toward the owner's office was thick, heavy, like walking into a courtroom where you already know you're on trial. The second the door closed behind us, Vera exploded. Words tumbled out of her mouth like machine gun fire. How she was the victim, how we'd set her up, how Hato had offered to teach her Japanese so she could connect with customers and make the restaurant look good. The owner just lifted one hand and silence fell. His voice was measured when he asked, "Translate for me right now." "Exactly what you told my mother." Vera straightened up, confidence sliding back onto her face like a mask. She said she'd wished his mother a happy birthday, told her she was beautiful, wise, all the nice things. The owner didn't even blink. He grabbed a pen, scribbled something on a piece of paper, and slid it across the desk. Vera picked it up. And I swear to you, the color drained from her face in waves, red, then pale, then this awful green, like she was going to be sick. That's when the owner turned his eyes on Hato. "Why would you teach her to say something so vile?" And that's when I finally spoke. My voice was shaky, but I forced the words out. I laid it all on the table. How for months Vera had been cornering Hato when I wasn't around, brushing up against him, pressing her body into him in the kitchen, whispering innuendo in Japanese she'd Googled. How she'd been trying to wedge herself between us, flirting right in front of me, making him uncomfortable every single shift. Before I could even finish, Daryl, her cousin and the manager, jumped in. He accused me of being jealous, of making everything up because Vera was better at her job. He even brought up the night with the Japanese businessmen, saying I had sabotaged Vera's orders. The owner narrowed his eyes, leaned forward, and asked for details. That was my chance. I pulled out my phone, opened my photo gallery, and slid it across the desk. Photos of the original order tickets, ones I'd been smart enough to snap that night. Her handwriting was right there, clear as day. Nothing but scribbles, nonsense. Not a single dish name written properly. The owner's eyes lingered on those photos. He studied them carefully, while Daryl squirmed in his chair like a kid caught lying to the principal. Vera suddenly switched gears, tears spilling down her cheeks. She sobbed about how she only wanted to embrace Japanese culture, how she admired it so much, how she just wanted to learn. Then, of course, she turned it back on me, saying I'd always been mean to her, that I'd poisoned Hato against her because I was threatened. The owner tilted his head. Calm but sharp. If you truly wanted to learn, why not use Google Translate? Why not take an actual class? Vera stammered something about not having time, but before she could finish, there was a knock. Mika, one of the servers, poked her head in. She told the owner his mom was getting anxious, guests were starting to ask questions. He sighed, rubbed his forehead, and told Mika to give everyone free desserts. But Mika didn't leave. She shifted from one foot to the other, nervous. Then she said quietly, "Sir, I have something to share. About Vera." He waved her in. And right there, in front of all of us, Mika laid it out. The time she'd overheard Vera in the break room mocking Asian customers. Doing fake accents. Pretending to bow, laughing about how they all order the same boring food. Daryl jumped to his feet, furious. He barked that Mika was jealous because Vera got better tips. That's when the owner's hand slammed onto the desk with a crack so loud the walls seemed to shake. Everyone froze. "Sit down." And "Shut up." No one dared breathe. And then another knock. Nathan, one of the kitchen guys, poked his head in. "Boss, you need to see this." On the security footage. We followed him down the narrow hall into the cramped security room. Nathan pulled up the monitors, clicked through the dates, and stopped. 3 weeks ago. He pressed play. The grainy footage flickered, showing the kitchen during a slow afternoon. And there was Vera, cornering Hato between the prep counter and the wall. Her body pressed against his, her hands flat on his chest sliding lower and lower. Hato was pinned, visibly uncomfortable, trying to lean away. And then finally, he ducked under her arm and escaped to the other side of the kitchen. The owner's face darkened as he replayed the moment, watching Vera's body language again and again. When he finally turned to Daryl, his voice was ice. Did anyone file harassment complaints about this behavior? Daryl's cheeks burned red. He mumbled that, yeah. Vera had mentioned people were jealous, but he hadn't thought it was serious. The owner's voice dropped even lower, and that was worse than yelling. How many? Daryl stared at the floor. At least 5. 5 different staff members had come forward. And he ignored them all. Then Sophia, another waitress, appeared at the doorway holding a thick folder. She laid it down, spread the papers across the desk. Customer feedback forms. Every single one was a complaint about a rude waitress saying offensive things in what sounded like Japanese. The dates lined up perfectly. Right after Vera started using the phrases Hato taught her. The owner read each form slowly, his jaw tightening with every word. An elderly couple wrote how their granddaughter had been told something that sounded like a death threat. Another man who spoke Japanese said the waitress told him to do something disgusting to his ancestors. Finally, the owner looked up. His voice was calm, but his eyes were blazing. Everyone out. Except them. He pointed at me and Hato. Vera tried to argue, but Sophia grabbed her by the arm and dragged her out, Daryl shuffling behind, pale as a ghost. When the door clicked shut, the owner sat heavily in the chair. His hands were trembling as he asked, "Did you teach her those phrases? Was this revenge?" Hato and I exchanged a glance. And I knew we had to tell the truth. So I told him everything. From that very first lunch when Vera slid into my seat. To the endless harassment, the touching, the lies. To the night with the businessmen, the allergic reaction, and the false write-up that nearly cost me my job. I admitted it. Yes, we taught her the phrases. Yes, it was wrong. But we were desperate. Nobody listened, nobody helped. The owner sat there, listening, his fingers pressed against his temples. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, Hato spoke. His voice was steady. He said he had originally told me no, but he couldn't watch me break down anymore. He took full responsibility, said if anyone deserved to be fired, it was him. The owner leaned back, the chair creaking under the weight of it all. He rubbed his face, sighed. What you did was wrong, he said finally. But what she did was worse. Much worse. His eyes flicked toward the door. And Daryl, he failed this team completely. He stood, straightening his shirt, and said quietly, I need time to decide what happens next. But first, I have to go back to my mother's birthday party. And just like that, he left us sitting there, the weight of everything pressing down on our shoulders. We stepped back into the dining room and the buzz hit me like heat from an oven, whispers, clinking forks pausing midair, people trying not to stare while absolutely staring. The owner's mother sat at the head of the table, hands folded, eyes steady as her son slid into the chair beside her. They spoke in low, quick Japanese while the whole room held its breath. Every so often she glanced at Vera, who'd plastered herself to the wall near the kitchen door, arms wrapped over her chest like she could fold herself into the drywall. Then the owner's mother rose. Tiny frame, but somehow the air changed around her, like everyone's spine straightened at once. She walked to Vera with small, exact steps, face calm, eyes cutting. When she stopped, her voice carried, clear English, a soft accent laced with steel. I have been called names before, she said, but never by someone who claims to respect my culture. Real respect means taking time to learn, not playing dress-up with someone's heritage. Vera flushed scarlet, opened her mouth, and nothing came out. The owner stood too, clearing his throat. Effective immediately, he announced. Management and staffing changes are being made. He apologized to the guests, offered 50% off every check, and then fixed his gaze on the 4 of us, Daryl, Vera, Hato, and me. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. My office. People tried to resume dinner, but the celebration was cooked. He guided his mother back to her seat, and they resumed their quiet Japanese back and forth. Those next 3 hours were the longest of my life. Vera lurked by the dish pit, taking no tables, eyes hollow. Daryl stomped around barking orders no one was obeying anymore. The servers traded glances like they were watching a soap opera unfold live. I kept my head down, took care of my section, and counted minutes. Every time I passed Vera, she seemed smaller, shrinking into the corner like a scolded child. Daryl still tried to flex, but everyone could tell. His crown had cracked. Finally, doors locked, closing list out. I was wiping down when Ma came over with Nathan. She set a warm hand on my shoulder and said she was proud of me for speaking up. Nathan nodded hard. Kitchen had seen this circus for months. We'll back you tomorrow, he said. I thanked them, finished side work on autopilot. On the drive home, silence pressed between me and Hato like a third passenger. Eventually the words spilled. Did we go too far? We never meant to humiliate his mother. That haunted both of us. We wanted consequences, not collateral damage. We stayed up till 3 a.m. rehearsing every angle, bracing for the worst. If we kept our jobs, we'd apologize properly. If we didn't, well, we'd deserve whatever came. Morning. We arrived 30 minutes early. Sophia was already there, tables covered in paperwork, termination forms, policy manuals, fresh contracts. Daryl came in tight-jawed and sour. Vera followed last, eyes swollen from crying. At 9 on the dot, the owner walked in and got right to it. "Daryl," he said, "you're demoted to server, effective immediately." Daryl puffed up to protest. One raised hand from the owner shut him down. "You're lucky to have a job at all after your complete failure as a manager." He turned to Vera, face harder. "You are terminated for harassment, creating a hostile work environment, and damaging this restaurant's reputation." Papers slid across the table. Vera sobbed, begged, promised she'd change. The owner didn't budge. "Clean out your locker and leave." Then his eyes landed on us. My stomach flipped. "What you did was unethical and could have seriously hurt this business if word got out," he said. "But you were pushed there by a management failure. One final chance. 3 months probation. Any slip, we're gone." Formal apology letters to his mother. Cultural sensitivity training at our own expense. And if staff wanted to learn Japanese, Hato would teach, properly as real lessons. We agreed before he finished the sentence, just grateful to still be standing. Sophia stepped forward with the new manuals. She was the new manager. Real reporting procedures. Real investigations. No favoritism. A mandatory all-staff meeting that afternoon. She said the words like she meant them, and you could feel the room tilt towards something better. Within days, the floodgates opened. Mika brought Sophia a notebook she kept for months, dates, times, breakroom mockery, fake accents, bowing jokes. Nathan forwarded screenshots where Vera bragged about getting me written up through Daryl. 3 other servers came forward, unwanted touching, racist comments. Sophia sat at a corner table building a mountain of incident reports, organizing everything into a thick file. The owner approved paid workplace respect training, 2 extra hours a week on the clock. That night I stared at a blank page at my kitchen table, trying to write to his mother. I started over a dozen times. I explained we never intended to hurt her, that our stupid revenge blew up her birthday. I wrote about feeling trapped, not being believed. How much I admired her son and this restaurant that had become home. Then I remembered the photo album I'd been compiling for the anniversary, 3 months collecting old snapshots from regulars and staff. Grand opening photos from 20 years ago, news clippings, messy Polaroids from late nights. I wrapped it and tucked it into the envelope with my letter. Hato wrote his own, taking full responsibility for the phrases. A week later, I was refilling salt shakers when the owner's mother came in. My stomach knotted. She asked Sophia if we could talk, and we slipped into a quiet booth. She set our letters on the table, edges softened from being reread. She told us she felt our remorse, and that the photo album had made her cry. She shared how she came to America 40 years ago and was mocked for her accent, people making fake karate sounds, pulling their eyes back. Vera's insult dragged her back to that loneliness, but she also knew what it felt like not to be believed when you're being mistreated. "I forgive you," she said. "Promise me you'll handle problems better next time." Then, curveball, she offered to teach real Japanese once a week. "Language and culture aren't costumes," she said, eyes shining. "They are bridges." We thanked her, humbled by the grace we didn't deserve. Meanwhile, Daryl floundered as a server. Day 2 dropped a full drink tray. Lunch rush, mixed up 3 orders. He kept trying to boss people around, nobody listened. A server he'd written up months ago watched him struggle with the card machine, smiling into her apron. Word traveled fast through the restaurant grapevine. I heard he applied to 5 spots, denied across the board. Owners whispered about the Vera fiasco. The Italian place down the street passed on Vera immediately. The steakhouse tossed her application. Someone spotted her at the unemployment office, then heard she'd moved to another city to live with an aunt. I tried to muster sympathy, but then I pictured her pinning Hato against a prep table, and the feeling evaporated. The owner's mother, now our weekly teacher, showed up Tuesdays with tea sets and stories. Not just vocabulary, but history, etiquette, regional dialects, why words matter. Staff showed up early, stayed late. Regulars noticed the real greetings, the careful service. More Japanese families began coming in. The vibe shifted. 3 months flew. With Sophia steering, the place ran better than ever. Probation review, she beamed, wrote that we'd grown into leaders. The owner came in to remove our probation himself and handed us small raise letters. Hato pitched a cultural exchange program with the Japanese Cultural Center downtown, guest chefs, tea ceremonies, seasonal menus. He met with the center twice and came back glowing. The owner greenlit him to build it out. Guilt transforming into something worthy, that's what it felt like. Sophia installed anonymous complaint boxes and actually read them. Monthly meetings where anyone could speak. Kitchen and floor worked as one now that Daryl's favoritism was gone. Even the food tasted better when the stress wasn't simmering on the line. 2 weeks later, new faces flooded in. People had heard how the owner handled everything. Reviews popped up praising a respectful staff and a zero-tolerance culture. Happy to support a business that doesn't tolerate discrimination, one wrote. Business boomed, weekend shifts added, 3 new servers hired. Sophia on board, each one with the policy talk. Harassment won't live here. 6 months on, Daryl still struggled. Old habits, zero authority. One Tuesday he mumbled to Sophia that he'd taken a job at a chain across town. No farewell party. His last shift was a long sigh. When he left with his apron in a plastic bag, the air brightened. Sophia announced Mika as assistant manager. The applause felt earned. The owner's mother started coming in 3 times a week. She perched at the bar during slow spells, taught words while we rolled silverware, jumped on the line to show traditional knife work. One afternoon she spent 4 hours with our head chef brewing proper dashi from scratch. She brought old photos from Osaka, stories of her family's noodle shop. We called her Obasan, grandmother, and she lit up every time. She slipped us homemade onigiri, hugged staff through rough days, delivered pep talks in a cozy braid of Japanese and English. She took a memory that could have scarred us and turned it into glue. Almost a year after Vera, the owner closed the restaurant one Sunday for a staff and family dinner. A long buffet, American classics and Japanese dishes side by side. He stood and spoke from the heart. The crisis had forced him to rethink the business. His mother had shown him respect and culture walk hand in hand. People cheered as she dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Then the surprise. He asked her to stand and named her an official partner, in charge of cultural programming and developing authentic menu items. She covered her mouth, crying for real. He handed partnership papers across the table. She signed with a graceful fountain pen while phones snapped photos and someone hooped. The next month, Heido's program launched with a sold-out sake tasting. 2 instructors from the cultural center spent all day prepping with us. We paired sakes with dishes Obasan had helped design. Food bloggers came, wrote glowing reviews about authenticity and care. One line stuck with me. They're setting the standard for cultural appreciation. Turned into a monthly series, tea ceremonies, seasonal festivals, history nights. 3 months later, Sophia called me in with that cat who caught the canary grin. Head server position. A raise. I trained new hires on service standards and workplace respect. During sessions I told our story, the parts one botched, the parts one fixed, why speaking up matters. New staff asked real questions. Felt good turning a mistake into a map. 6 months after that, we were nominated for a local Workplace Excellence Award. Committee interviewed the team, shadowed shifts, pored over policies. We won. The owner framed the plaque beside a photo of his mother teaching class. Proof, he said, that something ugly can be the seed of something good. During a cultural night, Heido tugged me aside. My heart ping-ponged as he dropped to one knee right in the middle of the restaurant. He proposed in English and Japanese while Obasan translated for the room. Staff cheered, customers stood and clapped. She blessed us in both languages and hugged us tight. It felt right, that our happiest moment grew in the same soil where we'd once felt small. She immediately started planning our reception at the restaurant. Menu, decor, both cultures honored. She sat with our families for hours, trading notes, scribbling lists. Process pulled everyone closer. 2 years flew. Now we had exchange students visiting weekly, English for them, Japanese for us. Basin organized school workshops every Friday, chopsticks practice, origami, the line demonstrating sushi rolls. The local paper ran a feature calling us the most authentic Japanese restaurant in 3 counties. Bloggers drove hours to try the seasonal menu built from her hometown recipes. We hosted Children's Day, kids in kimono ate free, and Tanabata, where customers tied wishes to bamboo. Nightly we were packed with people chasing the real thing, not a costume version. I was constantly training new servers to keep pace. One afternoon doing inventory, Sophia showed me a social post. Vera folding shirts at a clothing store downtown. Employee of the month. Twice. She looked okay. Part of me wondered if the firing had taught her something or if she'd just slipped into a new story without changing the script. I hoped she learned. The next week, the owner gathered us. He'd found a spot for a second location across town. His mother would split her time running cultural programs at both. He looked right at me and Heido, offered us management roles at the new place. We said yes on the spot, buzzing to build a workplace from the ground up with everything we'd learned. Looking back, from harassment and termination to a restaurant that feels like family, I realized how much good grew out of chaos. Basin found a new purpose. At 82, we learned courage is messy but necessary. And yeah, our revenge was petty, but the transformation that followed was bigger than any of us imagined. That's the heartbeat of today's story. If it gave you something worth pocketing, stick around, more real talk wrapped in real stories every week. And now, the next chapter one promised. My wife left me at the altar, and I held the door for her on the way out. After Afghanistan took my leg, I spent 6 months learning to walk again in secret, because I wanted to stand for her. I sank 40 grand of my savings into her dream wedding. Morning of, my best friend Olivia was straightening my medals when my phone buzzed. It was Stephanie. I'm at the venue, but I can't do this. Your PTSD, the nightmares, the missing leg, it's too much. Kyle reminds me what love is supposed to feel like. I'm sorry. Kyle. Her high school boyfriend. The guy who'd just stopped by last night to wish us well. He had both legs and zero memories of holding a friend's insides together in a helicopter. I wheeled to the hall and found them together, like they were rehearsing an escape scene. Her dress snagged in the door. I freed the fabric, held it open. Go, I said. 200 heads turned as she ran to Kyle's truck and chose him over me. Olivia pushed me out a side exit, and for the first time since I was a kid, I cried. Then the other shoe dropped. Stephanie had handled our finances while I recovered. Less for me to worry about, she said. I logged into our joint account and laughed like a madman. Empty. Months of transfers to Kyle Blackwood. I couldn't even pay for my doctor's appointments. 2 weeks later, my body started rejecting the prosthetic, titanium poisoning. Emergency surgery, 30 grand. Insurance? Cancelled 3 months ago, Stephanie's saving money. Olivia's dad showed up the next morning with a check. Vietnam Marine. Owned a defense contracting firm. Real soldiers don't leave anyone behind, he said. We'll take care of it. For 3 days, Olivia barely left my bedside. You don't have to sleep in that chair, I told her. What if I want to? She smiled, eyes half-moon tired. 6 weeks later, I was relearning to walk on a cheaper prosthetic that fit. Olivia was basically living at my place, driving me to PT, cooking, refusing to let me drown. 3 months into rehab, we celebrated my first non-stop lap in the pool at Chili's. That's where we saw him. Kyle in a booth, some blonde feeding him dessert, his wedding ring flashing under the lights. Married the whole time. I recorded 10 seconds of him making out like a teenager. Olivia squeezed my hand. Save it, she whispered. You'll need it. The night I won gold at the Paralympics, everything shifted. We were in my hotel room, toasting with gas station champagne, when Olivia burst into tears. I've loved you since Kandahar, she said, before the IED, before Stephanie, all of it. She pulled a folder. Copies of transfers, notes where Stephanie called me too damaged to notice. You deserve someone who loved you when you were whole, she said, and loves you just as much now. We kissed. Felt like coming home and being wanted there. 6 months we learned each other's rhythm. We were at the VA getting fitted for a new prosthetic when Stephanie limped into my life again. Mascara tracks, designer clothes rumpled. He left me, she blurted. Kyle went back to his wife. I lost my job. I lost everything. Tell them I didn't know what I was doing. I don't owe you anything, I said. Drew, please. I made a mistake. You're a war hero. I can learn to handle your condition. Olivia walked out of the bathroom and froze. Is this the woman who stole his disability money while he was in surgery? Stephanie went chalk-white. You replaced me with her? My fiancé, she snapped. We're getting married next month, I said. Same venue, actually. Stephanie lunged, grabbed my arms. I'm pregnant. Since the week of our wedding. It's your child. She slowly pulled a paternity test from her purse. Olivia's coffees hit the floor, hot splash across my foot, papers trembling between us. My prosthetic clicked as it locked wrong under my weight. I gripped the wall rail, metal cold in my palm. The room went quiet except for my pulse. People stared. An old vet in a wheelchair rolled himself back like the drama might be contagious. Stephanie kept waving those papers, words blurring under the roar in my ears. I took her arm, firm, not rough, and steered her toward the side hall near the water fountains. Stale perfume, sweat, paper crinkle. Olivia stayed in the waiting area. I saw her fists clench right before the door swung shut. I told Stephanie a real paternity test goes through the court, chain of custody supervision, not something she pulls from her purse. She cried harder, grabbed my shirt. I stepped back. A VA security guard peeked in. I nodded we were fine. When I walked out, he blocked her. Do you have an appointment, ma'am? I left her arguing while Olivia and I slipped out the side exit. We didn't speak on the drive. I lay on the sofa staring at the ceiling till morning. Dawn, I called Annalisa Kim at the VA to confirm my coverage and prosthetic appointments. She checked my file, 6 months scheduled. She heard my voice wobble and gave me the crisis line. I wrote it down. Olivia sat across from me at the kitchen table and pressed for a lawyer. Her dad knew one. My pride wanted to soldier through alone. She squeezed my fingers. This is too big to face by yourself. She was right. 2 days later, we sat in attorney Melinda Goodwin's office, 3rd floor, old brick building, reading glasses on a chain. Olivia's dad had briefed her, but she wanted it from me. I handed over bank statements, 4 months of transfers to Kyle. She photographed every page. I showed the Chili's video, Kyle kissing the blonde, ring flashing. She filled a yellow legal pad, asked about dates, amounts, emails, texts. Then she set down her pen. Preserve everything. From now on, no contact with Stephanie except through counsel. She started typing demand letters for the stolen funds while we watched, then pulled court forms for the paternity action. This is fraud. You have a strong case. It will take time. My phone buzzed. Stephanie. We need to talk privately about the baby and our future. I screenshotted, forwarded to Melinda, and typed back. All communication goes through our attorneys. Melinda nodded and added it to the file. 3 days later, I had my first trauma session with Tyrone Ainsworth at the VA, former Army medic, kind eyes, fake plant in the corner. I finally said the quiet part. I was terrified of being a father, angrier still at the idea of abandoning a child who didn't ask for any of this. He helped me hold both feelings without shame. That night, Olivia and I had the hard talk on our couch. If the baby is mine, boundaries, custody, no door open to manipulation. She said she'd stand by me, whatever I chose. We agreed on one thing with absolute clarity. No matter what the test shows, Stephanie doesn't get back in. And then my phone buzzed with a message that blew every plan to pieces. The next morning, Olivia's dad showed up balancing 2 coffees and an envelope. He sat at our tiny kitchen table, slid the check across, and said he'd cover Melinda's retainer until we clawed the money back from Kyle and Stephanie. I started with the automatic no, I can't accept that, but he cut me off with a look I know from every unit briefing I ever sat through. Soldiers take care of each other, he said. That's what family means. I swallowed my pride so hard it burned and took the check, promising to pay back every last penny. By lunchtime, my phone was buzzing nonstop. A military blog, Honor Watch, was chasing an interview about being left at the altar. I showed the messages to Melinda. She didn't even blink. Ignore it. All of it. Stay completely off social media while I handle the legal side. Orders received. 2 days later, Olivia and I sat in a small interview room at the downtown precinct with a detective who looked like he'd been awake since the Bush administration. We walked him through every transfer to Kyle's account while Olivia held our thick folder of printed statements like evidence in a courtroom drama. He photographed each page, typed notes, and finally said what we already knew. This is theft. Then the kicker, these cases crawl. Don't expect quick results. That afternoon, I tried to sweat the noise out at the gym. Halfway through sets, my phone pinged. Subject line, please read. 3 pages from Stephanie, homeless, sleeping in her car, hadn't eaten in 2 days, thinking about ending it. My stomach turned. I forwarded it to Melinda immediately. She sent it to social services with a list of shelters and food banks and reminded me firmly to hold the no-contact line. Monday, Melinda filed for a court-ordered paternity test with full chain of custody, no more mystery papers from a purse. She called later to say the hearing was set for next week, and warned me the anxiety would likely spike as we got closer. She was not wrong. After 3 nights of almost no sleep, I called Annalisa at the VA and asked if we could move up my prosthetic fitting. Stress had my stump screaming. She got me in 2 days later, adjusted the socket, and, without making a big deal of it, added a few mental health referrals to my file. At my next session, Tyrone taught me a breathing drill. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. I rolled my eyes, and then it actually worked. That night, I slept 5 straight hours. No IED dreams, no courthouse loop, no baby panic. Just quiet. The next evening, we were eating takeout lo mein out of paper boxes when Olivia said we should maybe postpone our wedding until the legal stuff settled. It made sense, still felt like a knife twist to say out loud. We picked at cold noodles and agreed to delay quietly. No announcements, no family group chats, no questions we didn't have answers to. 3 days before the hearing, Melinda called asking to share the Chili's video with Chelsea, the attorney representing Kyle's wife in their divorce. Leverage, she said. Kyle didn't want that footage spotlighted in his own divorce. He might deal faster on our end. I told her to send it and hoped it rattled him enough to settle instead of dragging us through months of court. Hearing day. I put on my one decent suit. Olivia drove us to the courthouse. Metal detectors, the faint smell of floor wax, elevator to the 3rd floor. The judge, older woman, iron gray hair, glanced through the file, then ordered official chain of custody testing at a certified lab with results sent directly to the court. Stephanie sat 2 rows back, hair unwashed, same outfit from the VA, hands trembling. Kyle? Nowhere. His lawyer muttered something about a work conflict. When we were dismissed, I headed for the elevators. Footsteps behind me. Stephanie, pale, thinner, shadows under her eyes, stopped a few feet away. Something in my chest tightened, but I kept walking, pressed the call button, felt Olivia's hand slide into mine. The doors opened. 2 strangers stepped in and did the subtle, not-so-subtle stare people do when they think they recognize a headache from the internet. Someone's phone blared a random Spotify ad, and the ride down felt like the longest 30 seconds of my life. 2 days later, I went to the lab address Melinda texted. Generic medical office, beige walls, antiseptic in the air. A tall tech with glasses, name tag said Cormac Marshall, met me in the waiting room. He walked me into a small exam space and explained the procedure while snapping on latex gloves. The swab dragged cotton along my cheek. He sealed it, then sealed it again, then sealed it a 3rd time. Signatures on each tamper strip like we were packing evidence on a TV drama. Minimum 2 weeks for results, he said. Chain of custody. When I stepped outside, Olivia was in the car with a paperback, not wanting to add pressure by hovering. Next morning, mid-prosthetic exercises, Melinda called. Kyle's lawyer sent a settlement offer, she said, voice dry. $5,000 total, no admission of wrongdoing, and you agree never to pursue further action. She actually laughed. It's insulting. I'm drafting the full civil suit today. I set my crutches against the wall, the room narrowing around me. $5,000 for everything they took. Money, time, sanity, the surgery scramble. It was almost funny. Almost. And then Melinda said, one more thing, there's been a development, and my stomach dropped because every time I thought the floor was stable it cracked again. 3 days later, Olivia's dad barged into our apartment again, this time with a fat folder under his arm. He spread out pages on the coffee table, criminal fraud statutes, highlighted sections, case notes, and paced like a drill sergeant. You could put them both in prison, he said, cheeks flushed, voice sharp. Every time he mentioned Kyle stealing from a disabled vet, he got redder. 20 minutes of legal fire and brimstone later, he slammed the folder shut. That afternoon, I sat in Tyrone's office with index cards spread across his desk. He'd had me write down my values: safety, peace, justice, order them by weight. We talked about whether revenge would actually bring any of those closer. Sure, criminal charges might feel good, but they wouldn't refill my bank account any faster. The next week, Annalisa called. My new prosthetic socket was ready. The old one had chewed my stump raw, sometimes so bad I couldn't walk for hours. The new fit snug, padded, angled differently. When I left the VA, I went straight to the pool. 3 laps, no stops. My lungs screamed, arms heavy, but when I touched that third wall, I grinned. Small victories matter. 4 days later, my phone exploded. Old classmates I hadn't heard from in years were texting. Some gossip site had twisted my story into a soap opera headline. War hero's bride runs off with secret lover while best friend waits in the wings. They'd even dug up ancient Facebook pictures and slapped on fake quotes. Melinda texted within an hour. Do not engage. Stay silent. This blows over faster if you give them nothing. Monday, a letter from the court arrived. I was allowed to attend the next prenatal appointment. Stephanie had tried to bar me, but the judge overruled her. Downtown clinic, 40 minutes in the waiting room. Stephanie wouldn't look at me, arms locked across her stomach. Tech squirted gel, pressed the wand, and then, there it was. That rapid whoosh whoosh whoosh. A heartbeat. Strong. My chest clenched. I walked out afterward and just sat in my car staring at the wheel. Part of me had prayed it was all a trick. But that sound made it real. That night, Olivia found me scribbling on a legal pad. Custody schedules. Pickup times, holidays, medical decisions. She sat with me for 3 hours. Cried, we argued, we wrote 5 pages of notes. Didn't make it easy, but it made it possible. 2 days later, Melinda forwarded an email from Kyle's lawyer, $20,000 and an NDA. No talk of the affair, the theft, nothing. Silence in exchange for cash. Melinda said it was better than the first insult of $5,000, but still far below what they owed, and NDAs were dangerous. Slip up once and I'd owe them. The next day in Tyrone's office, we spent the full session circling one question. What does closure mean to you? If I took the money, I'd never be able to tell my story. Silence can feel like shame, he said, even when you did nothing wrong. I walked out knowing my answer. That afternoon, I called Melinda and told her, reject it. She said she'd already prepped the full civil suit and warned me, it'll get uglier before it gets better. I told her I was ready. 2 days later, Stephanie texted me, $800 or I'll be evicted Friday. I screenshotted, sent it to Melinda. 10 minutes later, she replied with a list of housing programs and food banks, and the same reminder, do not respond. The next morning, Melinda called while I was on the mat stretching. Chelsea Chavez, Kyle's wife's lawyer, wanted to cooperate. Kyle had been hiding money from her too, and she had the bank records. It was vindicating, sure, but I hated thinking about their kids tangled in this mess. 3 days later, the lab called. Results delayed, backlog. Another week. My chest seized, breath shallow, heart pounding. I dropped into Tyrone's breathing drill, in 4, hold 4, out 4. 5 minutes later, my pulse slowed. I finished the call steady. That afternoon, a letter arrived from the VA, retroactive reimbursement. $3,000. Not a fortune, but enough to patch holes. Olivia and I sat at the kitchen table, calculators out, deciding what to cover first. Prosthetic maintenance. Credit card debt from the months I couldn't work. Small victories. Till victories. And the storm wasn't even close to over. A week later, I was walking through Target, picking out a baby shower gift for a buddy from rehab, when I made the mistake of cutting through the newborn aisle. Tiny onesies. Cribs. Couples laughing as they picked out strollers together. It hit me like an IED I never saw coming. My throat closed, my hands shook so bad I dropped the gift bag I was holding. I bolted out of the store, barely made it to my car, and sat with my forehead pressed against the steering wheel, gasping. Tyrone's voice floated up in my head, reminding me about grounding. I fumbled for my phone and called his emergency line. He picked up on the second ring. Calm as always. He walked me through it. 5 things I could see, 4 I could touch, 3 I could hear, 2 I could smell, 1 I could taste. 20 minutes later, I was steady enough to drive home. Olivia was waiting at the door with a glass of water, no questions. Just presence. That was enough. The following Monday, Melinda filed the civil suit. Conversion and unjust enrichment, 60 grand plus legal fees. Court date set 3 months out. She said that was fast. To me, it felt like forever. 2 weeks later, we got notice, mediation before trial. Standard procedure. Most cases settle, Melinda said. I didn't buy it. I couldn't picture Kyle or Stephanie suddenly finding reason. Mediation was Tuesday morning, downtown office building. Kyle strutted in wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck. Stephanie slumped in the corner in old jeans, eyes fixed anywhere but mine. The mediator, an older woman, kept repeating common ground, moving forward. An hour in, Kyle sneered that I was just bitter, trying to grab money I didn't deserve. Olivia's dad launched up so fast his chair clattered to the floor. I caught his arm before he got across the table. Break was called. 10 minutes in the hallway, me talking him down while Melinda quietly tore into Kyle's attorney inside. When we came back, Kyle was silent. Someone had finally muzzled him. 4 hours of back and forth later, we had a deal. Kyle, 30 grand over 2 years, monthly payments. Stephanie, 10 grand through wage garnishment once she found work. No admissions of wrongdoing. That part stung. But Melinda leaned close and said, trials are gambles. This way, you walk out knowing you'll get 40. We signed. Walking out of that sterile office lobby, I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt drained. 3 weeks after the settlement, the mailman knocked with a certified letter. My hand shook as I signed. Lab logo. Inside, 1 page. 0% chance I was the father. 99.9% match to Kyle. I read it 3 times. Relief hit me like a flood, and then I barely made it to the bathroom before I threw up. I sat on the cold tile, shaking, realizing the ache in my chest wasn't just relief. It was grief too, for a child I'd already started planning around, a heartbeat I'd already heard. Olivia found me there 20 minutes later. She didn't say anything. Just sat, held my hand, let me get it out. That night we stayed up till 3 a.m. talking about kids, someday without all this wreckage. The next morning I called Melinda. Told her to send Stephanie a formal no-contact agreement. Papers went out by courier that afternoon. 2 days later, Melinda confirmed Stephanie signed without a fight. Olivia and I drove to the courthouse that week. Cancelled the big venue. Scheduled a simple ceremony in the judge's chambers next month. 10 guests max, just family, just the ones who mattered. Clerk didn't ask questions. We didn't offer explanations. Through everything small felt right. Intimate. Ours. And for the first time in a long time, I actually looked forward to tomorrow. My next session with Tyrone felt completely different from all the ones before. Instead of dissecting Stephanie, Kyle, and everything they'd put me through, we dug into something I hadn't even realized I'd been avoiding me. He had me grab a notepad and write down everything I thought defined me as a person. Soldier. Purple Heart. MP. Survivor. Betrayed fiancé. The list filled up fast, but when Tyrone asked me to cross out everything tied to my service, my injuries, or the trauma I'd been through, I was left with only 3 words. 3. That silence hit hard. I'd been carrying my pain like it was my whole identity. Tyrone leaned in and said gently, "You're more than what happened to you. But you've got to start seeing it." 2 weeks later, Anaisa from the VA called with good news. My prosthetic care plan was approved for the next 5 years. Before hanging up, she mentioned a peer support group for veterans and asked if I'd be interested. My gut reaction was no. I hated the thought of spilling my personal mess to strangers. But then I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I'd already lived through worse. So I went. The meeting was just 8 vets in a circle of plastic chairs that squeaked every time someone shifted. The facilitator asked if anyone wanted to share. Before I knew it, I was spilling everything, the wedding, the stolen money, the paternity test, all of it. To my surprise, no one laughed or looked down on me. 3 guys nodded. One older vet said his ex had done nearly the same thing while he was overseas. Afterward, a couple came up and told me their own betrayal stories. It felt like the first time I wasn't carrying this alone. Then the first of the month rolled around and Kyle's payment didn't. Melinda called his lawyer, who admitted Kyle was already dodging the agreement. She didn't waste a second, filed a consent judgment so the court could garnish his wages directly. The judge approved it within 2 weeks. Melinda explained it would be slower this way, but at least it was guaranteed. No more hoping Kyle suddenly grew a conscience. That same week, I sat down and wrote a short statement for social media. Nothing dramatic, just about boundaries and healing without naming names or digging into details. After I posted it, I shut off comments and notifications. No trolls, no debates, no strangers dissecting my life. Just me finally speaking on my own terms. It was strangely freeing. 3 nights later, Olivia asked if I wanted to go swimming after hours. Her friend worked at the community pool and could let us in. At 11 p.m., the place was pitch black except for the eerie blue glow of underwater lights. I slipped in first, the water warm against my skin, and for once it wasn't about proving I could do laps or outlasting pain. Olivia floated beside me, both of us staring at the stars through the glass ceiling. 20 minutes passed in silence. My prosthetic sat abandoned on a chair, and for the first time I didn't care about getting back to it. The water held me just fine. 2 days later, Melinda called again. The final paperwork was done. Certified letters went out to Kyle and Stephanie confirming their payments, the permanent no-contact orders, and, because Melinda's thorough, lists of job programs and housing resources for Stephanie. Even though we didn't owe her that, it was the cleanest way to close the book. Legally, it was over. In my mind, well, that would take longer. That weekend, Olivia's dad came by with a six-pack. He sat stiffly on our couch, cleared his throat about 5 times before finally blurting, "I'm sorry. Sorry for pushing me to go scorched earth. Sorry for letting his anger at what they'd done fuel him more than my peace." We talked for 2 hours, about revenge, peace, how carrying anger only makes you tired. When he left, he shook my hand like it meant something deeper. He'd respect my boundaries from now on. The next morning, I carried a shoebox into the bank, my medals inside. Purple Heart. Bronze Star. All of it. I rented a safe deposit box for $20 a year and slid the box inside. Clerk asked if I was sure I wanted to lock them away instead of displaying them. I nodded. Those medals were proof of who I'd been. But building a new life meant learning who I was now. And maybe, finally, I was ready to find out. 3 weeks later, Olivia and I stood in front of a judge at the courthouse on a quiet Tuesday morning. 10 people in the room, that was it. Olivia wore a simple white dress she found online for $60, and still, she was the most stunning bride I'd ever seen. Tyrone even came on his day off, said he wouldn't miss it for the world. The judge read the standard vows, nothing fancy, but when we got to "I do," both of us broke down crying because we meant it. No chandeliers, no $100 centerpieces, no $40,000 wedding bill. Just us. 2 people who'd already been through hell and finally knew what real love looked like. Afterward, we went to this little Italian place for lunch. Everyone laughed, swapped stories, passed plates around like it was Sunday dinner. Then the speakers overhead kicked on with some country song about soldiers coming home. And just like that, I wasn't in the restaurant anymore. I was back in the helicopter, the smell of blood thick in the air. I shot up from the table, heart racing, and walked outside into the cool air. Olivia followed quietly, no cliches, no empty comfort. She just stood beside me, matching her breaths to mine until my chest loosened and I could breathe again. 10 minutes later, we went back in. Nobody made a fuss, and I loved them for that. 2 months later, the first garnishment payment from Kyle landed in my account, $1,500. We used it to finally clear the last of my medical debt from the surgery, and still had enough left to sign up as volunteer coaches for the adaptive swim program at the Y. Those kids didn't care about my missing leg or even the gold medal I'd won. They just wanted someone to show them how to float without fear. And teaching them felt better than winning anything. That same month, 3 news outlets called wanting to buy exclusive rights to our story. We told them no. Some parts of your life don't belong to strangers behind a screen. A year later, I ran into Stephanie at the grocery store. Almost didn't recognize her. She was in a restaurant uniform, hair pulled back, looking healthier than she had during the trial. She spotted me, started to walk over, then saw Olivia by my side and turned straight for the exit. Later, Melinda told me Stephanie was in a job training program and had been making her garnishment payments every month on time. Kyle? He was in court-ordered counseling for his gambling problem. His wages were still being pulled automatically, and his wife divorced him, took the house, the whole 9 yards. Meanwhile, Olivia and I bought a little place with a backyard garden using her VA loan. We planted tomatoes, peppers, sat on the porch in the evenings making plans about what came next. My prosthetic's solid now. I swim twice a week just because I want to, not to prove anything, not to chase medals, just because I love the water. The nightmares still hit sometimes, but Olivia knows how to anchor me when they do. And now, when we talk about kids, it feels like a real possibility. Maybe in a couple years, once we've saved a little more. Life feels normal. Quiet. Something I never thought I'd get back.
Thanks for watching. Today's train wreck is over, but tomorrow's ride is already on track. Subscribe so you don't miss it.